My name is Matthias Schiekhofer. I'm currently based in Waldviertel in northern Austria, and I'm a photographer. I'm a conservationist. I used to work for Greenpeace for a very long time, and since end of 2010 years, I'm a freelancer doing all kinds of projects, also to help to preserve the primary and oak-growth forests in Romania, in partnership with Nature Foundation, with Client Earth, with Agent Green NGO in Romania, and many others. And the reason why, or one of the reasons why we're doing this conversation today is because uh, we did a project in the last 2 years in Romania. This was organized by the Hochschule für Forstwirtschaft Rothenburg and funded by the Deutsche Bundesstiftung Umwelt and the Heidehof Stiftung. And in the course of this project, we tried to explore what options are there that tourism could be an incentive for better protection of those extremely valuable forests in Romania. And I've prepared a presentation with some images, and I hope this works now. So can you see
Yes.
the presentation? Yeah, this project focused on the area of Vagaros Mountains, Natura 2000 site. That's in the central south of Romania, of the Carpathian Bow, and on the National Park Domogled Valea. And the Carpathian oak-growth primary forests are a true hotspot of biodiversity for the whole of Europe. So the whole subject is not just a Romanian affair. That's also a shared responsibility throughout Europe to do everything we can to protect these forests. These are some of the largest clusters of wild forests we still have in Europe. And in Romania, you still can find pathless primary forest wilderness. This is something which is more or less extinct in the rest of Europe. You can find that probably in Scandinavia or maybe in Ukraine, but certainly not in the Alps, because in the Alps, every valley has at least a trail, or most of the valleys have a road as well. On the picture, you can see the Leitzer Valley in Vagaros Mountains. That's a truly wild valley, very steep, inaccessible, and it still harbors something like 1,000 hectares of primary forest. The largest primary forest in the Alps is Rotwald in Austria, and it's 400 hectares. So it's more than double the size of Rotwald. The status quo for primary forests in Romania is it's not so clear how much of this forest is left. There was an inventory in 2005 which found something like 220,000 hectares of virgin forest. There are lots of different definitions of what is a virgin forest, a primary forest, an old-growth forest. I will not go into that. We did an inventory of potential primary and old-growth forests in 2019. We called it primeval, so potential primary and old-growth forests of Romania, and we identified something like 500,000 hectares of these kind of forests. There was another survey a few years later, and they identified something like 700,000 hectares of potential high conservation value forests. And they used also satellite images, new satellite images, but also old satellite images from the 1950s, espionage images from the US Army, also to validate this forest, because if there was no opening in the forest in the 50s, there's a higher likelihood that this forest is really untouched. At the moment, in 2025, less than 80,000 hectares of the forests in Romania are under strict protection. There's the so-called National Catalogue of Virgin and Quasi-Virgin Forests. The latest entry there was in 23. And this catalog, it's a network of forest reserves, strict reserves, and this includes now 72,000 hectares. So there is quite a huge gap between 72,000 hectares under strict protection and the potential of 500,000 hectares in the whole country. Yeah, it's clear that we need to protect these kind of forests. There's lots of scientific evidence for that. There's a lot of political commitments. IPCC, IPBES, they call for the protection of this intact natural ecosystems, also because of climate protection, but also, of course, also because of protection of ecosystem services. The EU biodiversity strategy and the EU forest strategy, they call for a comprehensive identification, mapping, and protection of all growth primary forests in Europe. And this is something which was agreed by all the member states. And there's another reason why we need these ecosystems, because in times of climate and ecosystem crisis, ecosystem functions of those natural forests are becoming more and more important. We have the problem that our natural wood plantations are progressively collapsing. 600,000 hectares of these plantations have collapsed already in Germany and are partly now kind of a steppe land, because when it's dry and hot, the forest does not grow back. And natural forests are way more resilient. They could be an essential factor also for reforestation and for the development of more resilient forests in the future, also because of genetics, because of better adapted genetics. So there's lots of reasons why we need to better preserve this wild forest ecosystems. This is an overview of ecosystem functions of intact natural forests. They are important storages of water. They're important for water purification, for soil protection, for oxygen production, for flood prevention. They also help cooling the local climate through cloud generation. Carbon capture is, of course, something very important. And of course, also biodiversity. There's lots of species depending on mature forests with deadwood and ancient trees. And all the species are more or less extinct in our production forests now. And I mentioned already the genetics are also important. So the situation in Romania is that there is a lot of logging. There's a lot of legal logging also in old forests. And there is something which is called legal illegal. So it's a combination of logging based on a permission and overlogging or some illegal practices connected to this logging. I've witnessed that in many, many cases in Romania, and law enforcement, especially when it comes to European law, like Natura 2000, it's very weak. There's a huge problem with law enforcement. There is no environmental checks pursued in many cases before logging activities start in these protected areas. And one of the root causes for that is economy. And there are no sufficient funds to compensate forest owners for protection or for alternative use of forest, for provision of ecosystem services instead of timber. So another problem is that it's not really known where these old growth and primary forests are located. That's not known in Austria because there's no inventory in Austria. It's not known in Romania, and it's also not well known throughout Europe. There have been some attempts by the European Commission, also in partnership with Francesco Sabatini, who did a lot of work, and I also contributed to his studies a little bit. But there is no comprehensive mapping of this ecosystem. So protection is a difficult thing because nobody knows where these forests are. And in Romania, data on location and extent of primary natural forests is inadequate and fragmented because this mapping thing hasn't taken place. Another problem is increasing wood demands. So we have a loss of forest cover in Europe. So the forest surface as such is increasing statistically, yeah. But the forest cover, the tree density, there is more and more holes because of calamities, because of climate change impacts, because of a lot of logging, and especially the increasing demands of woody biomass, also for energy purposes, is posing a huge threat to natural forests, because in natural forests you have inferior woods in many cases. Yeah, you have old trees, they are gnarled, you cannot use them for furniture and for other stuff, but to turn them into chips or pellets, that's easily possible. And this means that there is a strong pressure on this kind of forests. Yeah, what you can see here is the storage of a wood biomass power plant in Upper Austria, and you can see that a lot of these trees here have big stems which have holes in it, and they're probably from old forests, and they're being incinerated, they're being burned. And this is also, looking at the climate crisis, this is probably not a very good idea, because burning wood also, of course, causes emissions of CO2. So there is no climate neutral burning of wood, because it takes many decades until these forests grow back. And probably this will never happen because of climate change and because of heat and drought and the breakdown of forest ecosystems as such. So what are solutions? For Romania, the one thing is that we need a good mapping. Yeah, this is something which is also stipulated by the biodiversity strategy. We have to find these forests, we have to map them, and we have to also protect them and find a solution for that. Yeah, as it's also written here, strict protection for all the old growth and primary forests. And this is also important because of the nature restoration regulation and of Natura 2000, where there is a lot of legal provisions, which actually would mean, theoretically, on paper, that these ecosystems should be protected. But in reality, there is a big problem throughout the whole European Union, that these forests are not really under a safe shield. And sufficient funding for compensation of private or municipal forest owners is also something very important. But funds are not there. Yeah, there's a lot of funds for road construction, for all kinds of saving banks or whatever. But for nature conservation and especially forest conservation, there's almost no funds. Yeah, in Austria, there is almost no fund. There's a biodiversity fund in Austria, which was a bit larger under the previous government, but now so the latest information I got is being downsized to something like 5 million euro per year for whole Austria. Yeah, for biodiversity protection purposes, and that's a joke. Sorry, this is not more than a hobby. So. And another solution could be the promotion of alternative economic uses of forests. And that could also be nature-based, low-impact, slow tourism. Of course, we need to avoid over-tourism in this forest, because that would destroy these precious ecosystems. But if it's done properly, then it could be an incentive for the protection of these forests. So the question is, are the Romanian fairy tale forests an undiscovered touristic asset? And what you can see here, I hope you can see it, because I cannot see everything. Yeah, this is some data from Germany, from different studies from university and the Bundesamt für Naturschutz, and they analyze to what extent nature is a factor in tourism. National parks and protected areas are a major contributor also to tourism, and tourists spend an average of 5.7 nights per stay in regions with large protected forests, and visitors to national parks, this is whether they are overnight visitors, spend more money per day than other comparison groups in nature tourism. So if you have a national park, if you have a high value nature area in your region, that could be an important asset. What the studies also found out is that tourism and recreation earn about 4 times more per hectare in the forest than logging. So on the long run, logging is not a good thing, because you get some money now, yeah, but then it takes very long time until you have another income. And especially if you look at the way logging is done in Romania, that's in many cases really destructive. Yeah, this is a hit and run thing, and because in Romania there are logging companies, and they bid at auctions to actually buy the timber. They have to construct the roads, which means that the roads are done really in a bad manner, because they don't want to invest a lot of money. It's not their road, so they just need the road to take out the timber, and then they leave the area again. So they leave devastation in many cases. So this is not sustainable. Yeah, and what the studies also found out is that large areas of natural forests are national or regional landscape shaping identification objects and also increase the image value of a region. So a national park region is something special. And insect nature is a very important aspect for travelers. So 2/3 of Germans like nature better the more pristine and wild it is. And tourists vacationing in Germany value sunshine, a healthy climate, and beautiful nature. So this is an important aspect as well. And in marketing, tourism regions that establish a direct link to national parks or biosphere reserves are more successful. So original nature thus becomes a unique selling point also in marketing. So, and this is the project we did in the past years. It was financed by the Deutsche Bundesstiftung Umwelt. The management was done by Hochschule Forstwirtschaft Rottenburg. Rainer Loic and Monika Bachinger were the professors leading the whole thing. What we tried to do is, on the one side, we did some mapping of primary and old-growth forests in these two regions, in Fagaras and in Domoklet, and created maps where we found these forests, and also maps how they could be preserved and protected. So there is a scientific study underway with the results of our mapping, also with a proposal for protected areas. Yeah, and there are also some scientific institutions we also invited to contribute to that study. So this will be done together with a professor from University of Oradea. Czech University of Life Sciences is also part of that, and some other researchers from Romania. And the second thing we did is promoting soft hiking tourism in primary old-growth forest areas to develop an economic incentive for better protection of primary forests and inform and entice local actors to get engaged in setting up soft tourism value chains, focusing on wild forest as an asset. So that was actually the thing, and I will talk about that mainly. So what we did is, on the one side, we researched best practice examples and communicated that also to Romanian stakeholders. We did that in several workshops, but also in some papers we created, and which are now available for everybody who wants to learn from all these examples. And we explored some hiking trails in primary forest areas in the Fagras Mountains and in Domoklet Vallecene National Park. And we published, and then we selected some of them, and then we published our recommendations for travelers and for nature lovers, and also for travel operators, for travel agencies, on a website. And you can see the URL here. It's primaryforests.org. So you find some descriptions of trails, and everyone can use that now, can go there individually. Yeah, you can go to Romania by car, by train. If you like by plane, I try to avoid that. You can walk there and cycling there also if you have enough time. It's not so far away. It's not so far away than Scandinavia or Canada or Alaska, but in some of the valleys it looks very similar. So it's truly wild. This is our website. So that's a screenshot. We provide some facts about this forest, also about the forest experiences, and also give some services. And here, this is the, let's say, the entry page for the Paradise Forest in Domoklet National Park. And if people click on that, they find some descriptions, including also maps, online maps, where they can find the trails for these forests. We did also some excursions together with journalists. So I was in Romania just 10 days ago with a journalist from the German weekly newspaper Die Zeit. And if everything works, they will publish a nice story about this beautiful forest and how to get there. There was a journalist from Austrian newspaper Kurier, and there were also some more reports also on social media, etc. We also went there with delegation of Austrian nature photographers. There's a National Association of Nature Photographers in Austria, and you can see the president of that association here in the picture with his partner photographing the wild forest in Fagaras Mountains. And we also did already a pilot journey in partnership with an Austrian travel operator, with a travel agency, to Domoklet National Park in last October. You can see images here, beautiful Indian summer. It was all yellow and red and orange, this beech forest. This is also part of the UNESCO protected beech forest system in Europe. So it's a World Heritage Site as well. And you can see our group in these beautiful forests. So the results from all these trips and from our project are that the first visitors who were in Romania with us were really enthusiastic about this unexpected beauty of these forests. So they thought that this is something they can only find far away in Canada or somewhere, like something like that. There is a growing interest also of international travel operators. After we published our report and some media information about the project, I got quite some interesting phone calls from different travel agencies who would like to explore that and also, yeah, come up with their own products, with their own journeys. Individual tourists are already using the website and the trail recommendations. I get a lot of inquiries from people. What's the most beautiful? So this works already. Yeah, and also because of the media stories and also the social media publications we did, the primary forests of Romania are better known now. So that's what we hope to make them famous and to inspire a lot of people to go there. Yeah, and at the end, some images. This is Valle Cernei in Domoclet National Park, and you can see this is really a beautiful forest area. In the valleys, there's a little bit of small hamlets and single farmhouses, and then you have this steep and high limestone cliffs, and on the inaccessible areas on the plateaus up there, this is all primary forest, and it's a very beautiful mix of these remote hamlets. Yeah, this is Dobraya in China Mountains, and the very natural and partly old growth forest just in the neighborhood of the villages. And this is the area where Alexandra wanted to talk about, but unfortunately I don't know, maybe something happened, so he's not here. And Alexander Deliaga is a good friend, and he lives in Timișoara, and he comes to Domoclet National Park every 3 minutes of his life. And he also wants to support the villagers in these remote hamlets. Yeah, they live a very decent life there. They live on subsistence, so they live on their animals, on their livestock, and on their fruit trees and their little fields, on their own corn, etc. So they don't have money. And most of the young people have left these hamlets already because they want to have a better life in the big cities. And tourism now brings them back, at least in summer, because there are jobs now. And tourism is organized in a way that there are some village guest houses, so there is no big investment, there's no big road. If you want to go there, it takes you 2 hours on a very bad road. So this also helps to keep out over tourism because it's so inaccessible, and you have to be really dedicated to go there. Yeah, the touristic facilities are quite basic, but very authentic. The hospitality of people there is incredible. They don't have a lot, but they share everything. And they are extremely warm-hearted and friendly. And you become friend or member of the family after a few minutes. Yeah. So it's a kind of tourism you will not find so often in many areas where tourism has become an industry. Yeah. And tourism also provides them with some funds and with a little bit of money so that they can afford, and most of the people living there are elderly people now, so that they can afford medical care, yeah, or new glasses for their eyes, and stuff like that, or a photovoltaic power generator on the roof because they don't have any electricity, or they have a diesel generator which is stinky and they need to buy diesel all the time. So this helps to improve their lives a little bit. And if it's possible to manage tourism in a way that it stays on a modest level, it does not corrupt the economy of this area completely, then this could be a sustainable idea how to pack together tourism and also nature conservation. So the forest you can see on the image at the top over there, that's part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the direct neighborhood is this archaic, ancient farmland. Yeah. Yeah, this is the village guest house of Nistor Talpes, Joanna and Nistor Talpes. And you can see this is made with a lot of handwork and with a lot of love. And that's this little cabin out there. That's where you get your breakfast and your dinner. in summer. You can sit outside in this beautiful flowering garden. So this is really a special encounter to go there. This is Fagarash Mountains. That's very much different. This is truly wild areas, truly wild valleys with 500 or even 1,000 hectares of untouched forest. Some of the forests are protected, mainly the upper parts of the valleys. In the lower parts, there's a lot of logging. And this is partly also damaging the touristic potential because the trails are damaged by the logging machines. It's even dangerous because sometimes the loggers, they just let the tree logs slide down the slopes, yeah, or trees fall down somewhere, and it give no attention to hikers. And this is something where we published a study today in a sustainability journal. You can see in the chat, you can see the link to the study, where we also did analyze Fagarash Mountains, the touristic potential, the wilderness tourism options, and there is also we did also a survey with stakeholders in Romania and asked them a lot of questions. And this survey is also is interpreted also in that study. Yeah, this is Valia Abashu, Mare, 900 hectares of virgin forest. Mulțumesc. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias, for this really interesting insight. Yes. Ciprian, are you ready? Then we can switch to you to the second presentation.
Yes.
Anna, can you maybe try to...
I try to share it. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Just a moment. No, I'm sorry. So I go into the presentation mode. Does everybody sees the PowerPoint? Okay.
It's a simple PowerPoint. just some image. So, is it possible to start? Okay. So, my name is Ciprian. You see me? And I represent the Naturefriends Romania, but with 20 years ago, start to work in the first Naturefriends house in Romania. The Naturefriends house is located in Ruthless mountains. The altitude is 1,000 meters, and in our area, it's three important protected areas: Ruthless National Park, Grădiștea de Munte, Ciocrovina is a natural park, and in Hase County it's a geopark Țara Hasegului. The chalet is not just a place for the rest or to eat something. It's a place for meeting, for communication, for interaction with nature. Of course, our action is try to minimize impact for environmental. I want to tell you about management, chalet management, and for the tourists. It's two different situations. So in our house, try to use, for example, 75% hot water is from the sun. Use two different panel systems, one for heating system and one for hot water. And with 18 years ago, start to use photovoltaic system. Was the first chalet in the west part use photovoltaic system. Yeah, it's more technical details. For example, for the shower, the pressure up for water is 0.8 atmosphere, and save 50% for hot water. It's amazing, and use just a small device for this. Yes, and it's not very expensive. And for example, another problem is kitchen. Yes, use season vegetable, not other produced for supermarket, and try to produce vegetables in our small farm and buy from the local producer. Yes, for example, another example, try to offer not a large menu. Yes, just one or two types to eat per day. In Retezat Mountains, because our house is in 1 kilometer from the national park border, and it's possible go just by foot, not by car or with other vehicles. It's not a problem with it's not the same problem with Domoglet or Făgăraș mountains or other mountains or Șureanu, for example. In the north face, of Retezat, it's 7 valleys, but it's just 3 roads. And for the cut forest, or for it's very difficult, illegal, of course, illegal. Touristic impact, it's in the last year, for example, the tourist number is down. For the nature, it's good. This it's possible to use just trails with marks, not other way, other trails, just with marks. And in the park, in the national park, it's not a problem with the communities because don't exist, just 2 or 3 chalets, and the area for tents is just 2 area for tents. Yes, this is the situation in the north part of Retezat. I don't know exactly what is the situation in the south part. It's maybe it's other problem, but in the north part it's okay. It's okay. More tourists come in Retezat for hiking because it's 80 glacier lakes. It's two high peaks, Păpușa and Peleaga. The altitude is 5,000 meters, and in the winter time, for example, use snowshoes or ski touring or winter climbing. With bicycle, it's difficult to go because the path is very hard. Yeah. Of course, I am hiking guide, and my wife is the same, and try to create a special tour. And in all the our tours include eco school. Of course, if in case the school is with child, it's perfect. Yes, and use more thematical trail. This image is from Șureanu mountain. Here it's a different situation because the road is small road and this small community. It's not the same with the Cherna mountain, but it's a small community and the access is easy. And in the last 10 years disappear authentic atmosphere in this area. Come more people with ATV or other vehicle, and yeah, I don't know exactly what is the situation with the forest, with cutting forest in Șureanu mountain, but in Retezat, it's in the north part, it's okay. So in my presentation, it's other pictures. Maybe you start to, yes. In this picture, you see it's more forest, and it's possible to go to see the to find the footprint in the winter time or in March, April, or see the birds, or observe the butterfly. In this time, it's a butterfly show. Yes. Start another image. Yes, it's this is another lake. It's not a glacier lake. It's two small rivers create a special area, and in this space, in this lake, it's possible you see the fish, and of course it's prohibited to fishing in the glacier lake or in the river in the national park. But tourists respect this. For example, Naturefriends Austria offer us I don't know, a bag trash bags, but it's possibility to reuse, and all the tourists, our members, of course, not all the tourists, but our members, Naturefriends members from Timișoara and Arad, use these bags to collect the garbage on the trails, and so because it's important to don't offer eat or for the wild animals. Yeah, this is in the center part. It's the name, and in the back it's Peleaga Peak, high peak in Retezat mountain. Yes, this is my presentation. I am not a specialist in the forest. I'm an engineer, but maybe I try to show you some pictures from Retezat and with our houses. In this moment, it's start to build another house in Apuseni Nature Park, another Naturefriends house in Apuseni Natural Park. Yes, this is my short presentation. Here it's a group group in every year prepare 2-3 weeks from only for children. pictures about nature, about the thematical trails. It's 4 thematical trails in our area, but in Retezat you find more thematical trails. Thank you, mulțumesc. I'm back, right?
Cyprian, I have a question. How many
Yes.
places do you have in the chalet? Or how many people can sleep there?
31 person.
Okay.
And
not
are
that
the
bad.
guests mostly Romanian who visits your place, or do you also have guests from other parts of Europe or maybe from overseas?
Sorry, repeat it.
Where do your guests come from? Are they mostly from
No, yes.
Romania or from Europe or overseas?
It's in every year it's a different. For example, with 4 years ago, 60% is from other country. Of course, tourists from Hungary is not in this category because it's not very long distance to come in Romania, but come from New Zealand, from Canada, from I don't know, from yes. After pandemic time, the situation is changed. 80% is from Romania and 20 from other country, but more from Europe, Israel. Yes, depend the fly the ticket price from the fly. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the presentations. I think Romania looks really, really, really beautiful. I think I will visit it.
Susie, you have raised your hand, please.
Yeah, are the hikes day hikes, or in the United States we like to backpack a lot and do multiple days in the woods? How is your system set up? Or what are the possibilities in terms of long distance, or do you go from hut to hut or village to village if you do a longer hike, or do people carry a sleeping bag and tent with them? And is the hiking set up in that way?
So in Ratazat, it's just three chalet. But if you want to translate the mountains, it's possible to use your tent, and in every three hours you find a place to sleep. It's possible to be a chalet, or it's possible to use your tent. Yes, but it's necessary 3 hours. Yes.
In Fagarash, there is a few mountain huts, a few mountain refuges at the higher elevations, but not very many. And most of the mountain range is more or less wild. There are a few bivacios, which are kind of plastic, little plastic domes or things like that, with some places where people can sleep with their mats and with their sleeping bag. So it's not like in the Alps where you can walk from hut to hut. This is not really existing. In the mountain areas, wild camping, I think this is quite common. In the forest areas, it's a bit more difficult because at least we've found out that when we had discussions with a travel agency from Austria, they would like to do kind of wilderness hikes, to go to a camping area somewhere in the wilderness and stay there for 2-3 days and do day hikes from there and then return down to the valley. It will be difficult to find landowners who would accept that they stay there for 3 nights and have a campfire. So, but if you stay just for one night with your tent out in the wilderness, this is normally not a problem. Yeah, but there are bears and wolves and all these animals, and especially in Fogarage, there I know from my researcher friends who stay something like 100 nights per year in the wilderness to do their primary forest research. They had at least a few tricky situations, especially when there were bear cubs with their mom. But if you, yeah, make yourself noticeable and clap your hands or use a little pipe from time to time to warn the animals that you are there, then there should not be a negative experience.
And
Wilfried.
are they, I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Maybe first Wilfried and then Susie. We can't hear you, Wilfried.
Sorry, my mic. Do you hear me now? Yes?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was a little bit late for the total explanation by Matthias. So I want to ask two questions that may have been asked in the beginning, answered in the beginning. First, the definition of old wood. What is old?
An
How
old growth
old
forest.
must the wood be to be called old wood?
Well, I think I did not talk about old wood, but old growth forests.
Yes.
There is definitions for primary forests and old growth forests. And there's also now the definitions where all the EU member states had a debate about how to identify that. And the primary forest, this is something where there was never any significant human impact.
Okay.
So this is since the last ice age or something like that, more or less untouched. Yeah. As far as we can know, because if somebody did cut a tree 300 years ago, you will never find out about that.
Hmm.
An old growth forest is a forest which where there was impact, where there were interventions in the past. In Austria, we have most of our wild forests. There was logging 200-300 years ago for salt industry or for iron production. But since then, some of these forests recovered naturally. And now they have structure, biodiversity, which is getting closer to a primary forest again. So
Okay.
this is kind of a secondary wild forest,
Okay.
and it's called old growth. But there is no definition what age the trees must have to be an old growth forest, because this depends on the successional
Okay. I
state.
understand.
Because
Thank you.
have a natural disturbance and you have young trees in a primary forest as well. Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is
In that connection, thank you very much. That was very revealing. This difference, old, pristine. So I once visited and had with a guide in the pristine forest in the north of Poland, with a very, very, very wild and pristine forest. I wonder when I hear you talk about that there is a lack of protection and that the government doesn't manage to pr- to stop the loggers from cutting these old trees and so on and so on. Is there a better way of doing in Poland? Because there I didn't hear that. When I was in Poland, they said, well, this part is protected, and if you even try to touch something, you get high fines. And I had the
yeah.
impression they had it on the impression I was only a visitor. So is
Yeah.
there a how do they manage there in Poland and Russia also? It goes on to Russia
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not in
yeah,
Romania. That's the question.
yeah. No, well, I think there is, unfortunately, there's also a lot of problems in Poland.
Okay.
In Romania, forests in the core zone of national parks, core zone of nature parks, forests which are included in the National Catalog of Virgin Forests, they are safe. Yeah, so we have no records that there is illegal logging in these core zones. The problem is the buffer zones of the national parks are huge. Yeah, and some of the national parks, the buffer zone are bigger than the core zones. So in the Seminyak National Park, it's about 1/3 of the park is strictly protected, and the rest there's almost no protection. There's all the forests are treated like like an ordinary production forest, and you see logging in all forest stands there everywhere. And I think that should not happen in a national park, because then you don't need a national park if you cut down all the forest. In Poland, the situation is, I think you talked about biodiverse forest
Yes.
at the boundary of Belarus. In Białowieża, you have a national park, which is something like 4,000 hectares, and it's strictly protected. Almost the whole park is strictly protected. And you are only allowed to enter if you have a guide and pay a fee or whatever. There's a little trail, but you're not allowed to leave that, etc. And this is even fenced. Yeah. So if you come from the village, there's a huge fence. You can't just walk in there. However, there is also a biosphere reserve in the Natura 2000 site called Białowieża, and that's much larger than the national park. So that's kind of an umbrella around the national park. And that's something like 100,000 hectares. It's much bigger, or 80,000 hectares. I don't know exactly. And there is also a lot of old forest stands. But there was a compromise between conservationists, NGOs on the one side, and the state forests on the other side, because this is most of the state forests, to decrease logging to a certain amount, and to save the old forest stands in the biosphere reserve. Yeah. So that's a UNESCO site there as well. But then there was the new government in place, and the new government decided just, we increased the logging volume again, and there were a lot of protests. And there was a infringement also procedure by the European Union, because there was
You mean the former government? Sorry, you mean the former Kaczynski or
this was the peace government? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it was under the peace government, because they said it's a little bit like under Trump. Trump says we'll lock down the forest.
Yeah. Okay.
We open the national park for exploitation, and nature conservation is something for losers. Yeah. So this was a little bit in Poland the same. And there was a complaint by all the NGOs, Greenpeace, WWF, Friends of the Earth, and so on. The European Commission started an infringement and said this massive volume of logging, also in the old stands, in the old growth stands, is unlawful. This is violating European Union legislation, and they escalated that to the Court of Justice of the EU. And the Court of Justice, what is the Supreme Court of the EU, and they ruled back in 2018, I think, that this logging is unlawful, and Poland has to stop logging in the Natura 2000 site. And otherwise, they would have to pay a fine of something like 100,000 euro a day. Yeah. So this was kind of a clear signal that the fun is over, and then they stopped the logging. And at the moment, it's peaceful. Similar things happened in Poland, also in the Carpathians, close to the boundary to Ukraine and to Slovakia. There's also huge areas with very beautiful forests. Part of that is in the National Park Bieszczady. This is safe, but outside in the Natura 2000 site, there was a lot of logging. I have some friends who did some actions there to stop the loggers. And the new government also promised to protect more of these forests, but somehow they went back a little bit. So this is still there's still a lot of conflicts in Poland as well.
But there is you proved that some actions of NGOs made partly stop the logging. So is there such action in Romania going on? Then I ask Cyprian and Matthias together. Are NGOs organizing to have stronger protection in Romania too?
Yes, some of my friends are working with NGOs in Romania, like Agent Green or Greenpeace or Millwools or The Click. So there are some NGOs, and they're also doing actions. There used to be big demonstrations in Bucharest a few years ago with, I don't know, 10,000 people against the so-called wood mafia. Yeah. So a lot of Romanians tell me there is a network coming from communist times, kind of rooted also in state forests in Romsilva, kind of rooted also in authorities, even in the ministry, and they service the system of overlogging and partly illegal activities. And they also protect the forest from the conservationists, because they want to have their high logging volumes. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, to have a look at the watch. Susie, you wanted to
Oh, sorry.
ask a question.
My question was not nearly as important as protecting the forest and the battle
But
against,
if
yeah.
you all agree, I mean, we can talk some more minutes because everything is so interesting. So please feel free to ask. I hope you don't mind if we talk a little bit longer.
Tell us
Yeah,
more.
please ask a question.
Mhm.
What can we do?
You can travel to Romania. You can visit the forests. You can talk to everybody you know about the beauty of this forest. You can talk to the pension owners and to the restaurant owners in Romania that they should also become loud about the protection of the forests. Yeah, if they are brave enough, because there's a lot of pressure in the small communities from the forest administrations. So I heard a lot of stories that it's not so comfortable if you stand up against the logging interests because they are quite powerful, also on the local level. Yeah, and it's an important source of income also for municipalities. So it's also an economic discussion. Yeah, but if this discussion could turn into a direction to improve tourism instead of logging down all these forests, that still would bring money to the community and save the beautiful natural landscape there. So I think that's the kind of discourse which is needed in Romania and outside Romania. Yeah, talk about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cyprian, do you want to add something to this?
Oh, yes. The first in our region, was more ONG, but the first ranger is the tourist, because in this moment it's possible to call from emergency number and come national park ranger or mountain gendarmerie, and it's easy to it's impossible to cut or destroy something illegal. Yeah, but it's a special situation. It's a special situation. In the other mountains, because I go with our Nature Friends group in other mountains, it's another problem. Yeah, it's other problem. Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
but it's a large area. In Romania, it's a more mountains, more forest, and it's it's difficult to manage without political decision and without implication. Not it's necessary national implication, local implication. Yes.
Susie.
And the best way to plan, you have the information on the web, advertiser on the Nature Friend website and in places. And to get an overview of where we can travel in these forests is easy to find on the web, so we can plan a trip. I mean, the information is easy to find, I'm assuming.
Yes,
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, you find more information on the internet, but and it's easy to use Google Translate or or other. But it's important to use not only website information, to use smartphone application or Navi, for example.
Munții
Yes.
noștri.
Yeah, Munții Nostri maybe it's not the best, but it's other. For example, in the Cerna Mountains, Munții Nostri is not the best application because you find more local trails, and in Romania it's very interesting. The trails was not created for the tourists with mountain club implication. It's not the same with the Alps. In Romania mountains, the trails was create create from the shepherd
Yeah.
to go up or go down produced, yes, and it's different because one trail for the tourists, the way is to see more objective. For the shepherd, one waterfall or one glacier lake is not important. Yes.
Maybe
This is the
before we finish, can you maybe write down the website for these smartphone apps? So just because of hearing, that would be just if you have it at your hand. So to write it in the chat so everybody has them, that would be great.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that in our project, we found out that it's difficult for a foreigner, to find proper maps or informations. Most of the national parks do not provide any English-speaking information at the moment. Yeah, if you come to Domoklet or Semenik, I think it's probably better in Retesat or Piatra Craiului because there's a lot of mountain hiking tourism. But in some of the other areas, you do not find any information. Yeah, and that's the reason why we decided that we just test a few trails, put them on maps. So what we used was just outdoor active because that's something which is quite common. It is not the best system, but at least you find the coordinates and you can find your way. And then we implemented that with the help of Outdoor Active on the website to just give a few hints on where people could find this very nice forest. But Cyprian, you're absolutely right. There's much more areas. There are many more areas which are interesting. Right? Actually, in Retesat, this was the first virgin forest I've seen in Romania. Yeah, I went with Gabi Paun to Lake Bucura, and I was sick, and I walked through this mountain forest up to Lake Bucura in central Retesat National Park, and I was healthy the next day because it was such a great experience to see this huge forest, and it looks like in Canada. If there is no village in this central valley of Retesat, yeah, there's the hydro lake, but afterwards it becomes wild, and if you walk up to Bucura Lake and you have this view over this huge forests and the wild mountains, this is really stunning, and there's lots of areas where you can find that. Yeah, but virgin forests, wild forests, this is not part of the narrative. Yeah, also, if you look at the websites of local agencies of the protected areas, it's not mentioned. If you search for the word virgin forest or Păduri Virgine on the website of Domoklet National Park, you don't find it. It is not an issue. And I think that should be changed because this is an asset, and there's a lot of people in Austria, Germany, or maybe other countries who would like to see this forest, but they don't know that they are there. And that's the gap I think we need to bridge.
Okay, thank you. I think these were nice closing words. And Emma, would you like to finish?
Yeah, my finish is I just want to say thank you to everyone being here and thank you for the interesting insight into the forest.